Hello and welcome. Well, today's topic is, I think, philosophical. That today's readers will be tomorrow's leaders. Now, this topic has been generated from a book written by Professor Kwam, which in one of the depictions, he depicts a human head and asks, what is it used for? And he says it's used for carrying. Now, this has generated a whole host of argument. And you tend to find that probably those who grew up carrying buckets seem to think it's okay. Those who live in the cantonment areas and never carried bucket thinking, oh, this is too demeaning. And then there are those of us in the middle who think, well, what do we do? But it goes on further from that, at what age does a child read? And how do we encourage children to read? Because indeed, those who are reading today are those who are going to be leading tomorrow. What is Ghana doing? What is GAS doing with regards to reading? But not only just reading, those who are going to read beyond the boundaries with which they are studying. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. My name is Nana Sakwa. This is PM Express. And when I come back, I'm talking to two passionate educationists. Don't move. Thank you very much for staying, and today's readers will be tomorrow's leaders. So if you have anyone in your house, even in the womb, start reading, because indeed they will be leading tomorrow. And my senior friend, senior brother, Anis Hafa, sent me a little video on WhatsApp. Now there's a door, and there's a child behind the door, and is pushing the door, and the door won't open. Then one little child comes, pulls the door, and walks through. And as the door slams shut, it says, education opens doors. So obviously the first child couldn't read that you have to pull. So kept pushing, until the one who kept ready to pull. And that's what we are talking about today. With me in the studio is Roberta Emma Emos Abenye. Yeah. Roberta, you're welcome. Now, Roberta is the leader of Jolly Phonics, trainer in Ghana. Yeah. He's a trainer in Ghana. And very soon, she'll be in Edumasa, Jolly Phonicking all my children to speak good, proper English and start early to begin with. But Roberta, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Roberta, even though I'm not going to dwell on this book, that's what generated this whole argument as to if this illustration was right or wrong. And that was the only thing that popped up on social media, was a little, one page where he's, the author has drawn a human head and asked what is he used for, and it says for carrying. I don't know if you can pick this page up so that we can sit. Who's going to get it? Come one or come two? Yeah, come two is going to get it for me, right? So, and everybody gets enraged that it's too simplistic, it's too not modern to say that the human head is for carrying. Some say, why don't you say it's for innovation, thinking, it's like a computer ICU, something in the 21st century rather than, prehistoric. Your little comment on that, and then we move on. But I want to assure people that the book generally, for a class 1 book, is very, very good. I've glanced through it. I thought it's a good book. It's just this little illustration that we're all arguing about. But you being Jolly Phonics, so you teach children how to read. Right. So what's your comment on that?
Genuinely coming from the background as a teacher, I think that what the person was trying to draw attention to is we teach children from the known to the unknown. Okay. Where we try to bring children from what is in the environment before they go into what is not in the environment. So basically, when you go through the traffic lights, you see people carrying things on their head. So that is the picture that the person is trying to draw the class 1 child to, before the child is introduced to other things that the head can do. So being a book for class 1, I don't think there's anything bad with it.
Okay. Okay. You see, the funny thing is when the story came out, you only saw the head bit, so it looked as if the whole book was so simplistic. But when you go through it, I mean, it's got really, good examples for a class 1 child. Teaches you hygiene, it teaches you so much things.
And that's about natural science.
Well, so I think it's a good book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good book. I think it's been unnecessarily bashed because of that little illustration. But Roberta, how important is reading, and how early should we introduce children to reading? I think that kids are being too pressurized in going to school. I mean, at a very, very young age, they are being dragged to school. I'm the one who thinks, look, leave them, let them play in the mud till they are 5, then they start school. But now it's like 2 years old and they're being rushed to school. I mean, what is the ideal age and what is the proper way?
Ideally, our children in Ghana, for example, in KG 1 and 2, children starting from KG 1, some are, depend upon the area where the child is. If the child finds himself in a village, the child goes to school very late. But in the city, the child goes to school very early. Because in the cities, you have parents going to work right after 6 months of delivery. So they need somewhere to put the children. Learning or reading shouldn't be, I put things on a book for you to read what is in the book. There's so many environments that can be created for reading to take place. So if a child is put in a room where the environment is conducive for the child to see things around, that little child picks certain things around the environment. So, unfortunately, with what the environment is turning into now, we can't say children should hold on until they are 8 years old before they enter the classroom, whilst the other counterparts in other places are going to school early. So if the child is ready, the child is ready.
Really?
Yeah. You come to the cities, our private schools, they start school from 6 months. That is not really going to read. But actual reading, I'm sure, will take place from 2 years onwards.
Is a crèche, a child going to crèche, any advisable than a child who stays at home and comes to KG1? I mean, if you go through the crèche nursery thing.
It has its own advantages and disadvantages. If I'm staying in a community where I start school right from KG1, the child who started school right from maybe 2 years old gets exposure to so many things in the school environment. Maybe the teacher takes the child through picture reading, takes the child through so many things outside the home, as compared to a child who is at home and not goes through such exposure until the child gets into school. So you definitely see the variations in these children when you put them together.
0560 800 000. 0560 800 000, because I really want you to join in this conversation and then share probably in your experiences. Did you find leaving the child early was more of a problem, or those who went late were better off? Again, I find, I always use my Dumasa as my example, and then I realized that most of the children could read.
Okay.
But they were not reading beyond a Dumasa. The man went to the farm, the woman is carrying, it was a festival, the chief, the linguist. It was familiar stuff.
Okay.
They were not reading about how to recycle a bottle, how things are made. Or, I don't know. Should reading be limited or should reading expand? What is it?
I think children in Edumasa are being limited to the things they find in the environment or the books that you've made available in the environment of Edumasa. But if you should make other books available to them, you are now exposing them to other vocabulary and to other things in the world. So a child finds what is in the environment readily available and then hooks onto it to read. So if Edumasa wants children to know about rockets, igloo, snow, winter, such books should be available. And I know with your library, it can.
Yes, my library we definitely can. And with quickly explain to me what Jolly Phonics does differently to what let me say a normal reading would do. What do you do?
Okay, Jolly Phonics is basically using synthetic phonics to teach children how to identify 42 sounds through a multisensory approach, where we learn the sounds with stories, we learn the sounds with songs, and we learn the sounds with actions. So instead of a typical child going through the 26 alphabets, we go beyond the 26. We go to 42 sounds of English language. So that after the child has finished learning the sounds, you learn how to write the sounds as well. Mm-hmm. And then after learning these sounds and learning how to write them, you have to blend them to be able to read a word. And when you have blended to get a word, you have to break the word by segmenting it to know that if the teacher says the word is goat, I hear g, I hear o, I hear t. So in Jolly Phonics 42 sounds, you don't just meet the 26 single alphabets, but you meet what we call the digraphs. And these digraphs are A, O, U, and others, where the children will just pick sounds out of the 7 main groups, put them together, blend them to read a word for you. If the child wants to spell, the child just segments the words, listen to the sounds in the words, and copy the words for you.
Are you not going to make my children's life too miserable?
It's rather going to be fun, because I can come into your classroom, and then I'll just do, are you ready?
Yeah.
Shh. Hey, Paul. I've given you a word. The word is ship. So sometimes you see the children having fun, and then the child will do, ready? K, a, t, a from cat. So the teacher can teach the child using actions, and that is fun. And with the experiments that we've done in other regions, we realize that because of all these actions and children remembering the sounds and children having fun, the enrollment in schools have increased. So get ready for more classrooms.
Let me go on the phone and speak to my senior brother Anis Hafa, who's a passionate educationist. Anis, you're welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening, and you're welcome.
Thank you.
I know you can't be here, but thank you for joining us on the phone. Anis, this conversation started from Professor Kwam's publication, J.A. Kwam, a natural science book for primary schools pupils, book 1. And in one of the depictions, he said, what is the head used for? And it says it's used for carrying. So the nation was divided as to it was too simplistic and it wasn't broadening the minds of the children. But we wanted to go further to find out, at what age does a child start reading, and what does the child read, and how do they read? But I want you to comment first on this depiction of what does the head use for, and it's used for carrying, and then we move on.
The CTFM did a program on this particular subject, and what they did, which was very wise, is that they went to a lower primary school to ask what the head is used for. And the children said the head is used for thinking. Now, this is the little kids. Huh? Now, if the little kids tell you straight up that the head is used for thinking, and then people, professors, people with degrees and titles tell you that the head is used for carrying things, then we have a problem. But then it depends on the instructional objective. If the instructional objective were, what are the things that the head should not be used for? Then we can say the head should not be used for carrying things. Because frankly, if you look at the head that is delicate, especially for little children, then you realize that we have to protect it. We have to protect it so we can use it properly, but not for carrying things or doing all manner of things that can hurt, especially the vertebrae in the neck. These are the issues. And then you ask, what do we have to use the head for? That it's not a question of what we should not use the head for. It's what we should be using the head for. And what I say is that if you look at, frankly, that example of using the head for carrying things is very primitive and it's crude. Now, and I keep saying this, if you look at the Chinese, I give that example. Now, the able to build some of the largest ships in the world. These are the examples that we want to give to our impressionable youth so that we can begin to validate what is essential. What is the head used for? The head is used for thinking. The head is used for imagination, and it's structured that way. Because if you look at the head composed of the brain, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue. All these are sensory organs that help us to think. But to devalue the head to something as ridiculous as carrying, it tells you why in Africa we are still in a very depressed situation because we don't use our imagination.
Okay, hold on there for me, Annie. This one says, and what I'm going to read it. Go for a quick pause and come back. It says, Nana, do we think with our head or brain? I think the prof made sense, and this is from Mike. So hold on, I'm going to take a quick break, and then I come back. But that's what Mike is saying. That look, do we think with our head or we think with our brains? Don't move. I'm coming back. Well, I want to say thank you to GT Bag for sponsoring the show, but definitely I have to catch up with this one. This is from Mensa Selom in Likpe Mante. Says, good evening, Anna. In as much as we are all talking about modernity and simplicity, we must take note of the immediate environment of the child. Theoretically, we all agree the head is for thinking, but practically, what do we see, especially in Africa, for that matter, Ghana? From carrying firewood to fetching water, and you just name it. Now, on the lighter side, in Ghana, we carry our chiefs in palanquin all on our heads. Let it be a bit moderate in the bashing of Professor Kwam. This is Mensa. Okay, Mensa, I get your point. But Anis, have I got you there?
Yes.
Yeah. So so generally people are saying that the child's immediate environment, that's what they see, and therefore. I mean, like you said, the eyes, the nose, and the ears are all stuck to the head, but generally you don't break it down like that.
No, look, the brain has support systems. We don't think only in the brain. We think with the eyes because we see things and we think about those things. We think with our ears because we hear things and we think about those things. We think with our nose too because we smell things and we think about it. They work together, so that's what we have to begin to understand. But, frankly, I've taught all my life. And under those circumstances, when I stand in front of about 30 kids, and for me to tell them that the use of the head that God gave us is to carry things. Now the thing is this, when you don't think, then you carry things that way. I remember when we were growing up where we were carrying things with a chopbox and the rest of it, because we did not know any better. Now we have luggage that has wheels on them because someone was thinking. So now instead of carrying things on your head, we use our head to develop wheels on a luggage so that it makes life easier. Human being is for progress, but it seems like we are stuck in some of our traditional ways. And for textbooks that are talking about science, to use some of the most ridiculous examples in terms of how we're going towards the 21st century is something that blows my mind.
Okay,
and in those circumstances, can we accept that? Especially when the test is for science. Science is to help us to develop a longevity, a particular kind of lifestyle. Where, let's say, we see the sense of beauty, the sense of effort, how we elevate our standards, how we protect the body itself. And then you realize that carrying things on the head is the most primitive example that we can ever give in the 21st century. These are the reasons why we have teachers. Teachers are supposed to guide us into the future. Teachers are not supposed to take us back into the Stone Age, into a primitive setting, because we have to advance. And we have to begin to look at that, especially if we're talking about science. And then what we have to do is look at best practices. What do other countries do that we have to emulate? Look, you go to a provision store. Most of the things that we can be produced in Ghana are produced in other countries. Why? Because they use their hands.
Anis, let me come in here. I mean, if a child is in class 1, this child is probably 6, 7, and if I say, look, your head is used for thinking, they're probably thinking, I mean, what do you mean? What is thinking? I mean, they wouldn't know what thinking is.
But this is why I told you that CTFM did a program where they went to lower primary. You see, we should not ever underestimate the power of children. Like we say in P, we should never underestimate them. In fact, if you look at the methodology for teaching children, what you call the frames of reference, so you start with them. You start with what it is that they know and their final instinct. And we work on their final instinct. But to replace that final instinct with the crude instincts of someone who's supposed to be a professor, that defeats the purpose of education right from the get. And for the GES to have approved of something like that tells you that education is being smeared in this country.
No, but
on account of people
Anis, apart from that,
challenges facing Ghana right now.
Anis, let me come in. Apart from that one illustration in the book, generally the book is it's a good book. I mean, for a child, if a child goes through this as additional learning material, if the GES is saying it's not a regular book, but this is just a book that you would learn at home. I dare say even class 3, you could go through this book and pick up some knowledge. So it's a good book. I don't want to condemning the book. It's just that one single illustration that's bringing argument. But at least for the benefit of this 1 hour, so we get the best out of it, we're trying to find out what age is good to send a child to school. Now, I got a message here. It says, Nana, please, it's good to send your child to school very early. My niece started school when she was 1.5 years. And my God, she's so brilliant with words and makes sounds to spell for us and speaks very good English. How I wish we had that kind of training early with words. And this is from Joanna. So let's move from Professor Kwam, and then for parents watching who are going to decide, because I always advise people, when finding school in term, keep them at home. But now I think the argument is going against me that no, it's a good idea to send them to school as early as possible. Yeah. Now, what's your take on that?
Do that part again. Do quickly.
My take is that I'm the old-fashioned who think, look, children should stay at home as long as possible before they go to school. But the modern trend, Joanna is telling me that, her niece went to school 1.5 years old, and she's, got enough vocabulary. She started spelling. She speaks well. Obviously, a brilliant little niece. I have in the studio Roberta, who is with Jolly Phonics. She trains teachers on how to train pupils. And she's also saying that, look, the earlier they go, the better it is.
Right. What is this? What has happened? The fact that, let's say, a mother tells you there's a biological ability to have a child, or the fact that there's a father tells you they have the biological ability to have a child. But when you begin to look at how you raise children, it becomes a very professional kind of activity. In fact, there are teachers who are dedicated specifically to raising lower children. There are situations where a mother might be fantastic, a grandmother might be fantastic, and so on. But in this day and age, though, we want to begin to look at also some scientific approaches to raising people, especially as much as trying to understand how the human being works. Now, if you look at some of the brightest people that I've seen, like Maria Montessori, John Dewey, John Piaget, these are very bright people who have spent their life trying to understand how the mind of children works. It's very different from a father or a mother who just has a child living with them. Now, the other thing about the need for children starting early is that the environment in which the children themselves are growing is very important. For example, you want to begin to know, and the United Nations has what they call the 3 Ps: the right of protection, the right of provision, and the right of participation. And that's a scientific way of bringing out the best of children. And that is being used in the Scandinavian countries.
And it's hold on, hold on there. Let me bring Roberta in here, because Roberta is actually one who trains teachers to train our pupils. Roberta, are children, the modern children, getting more complex? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's the right word, but are they becoming more technical, the modern child, than the older generation child? As to, in my days, it was only 26 alphabet. Now we're going to 42, in all funny ways of teaching.
So I think we're rather making learning easier and simpler for the children. Because, in those days when we're growing up, we're told to memorize words, where the word is just put the whole word and then you memorize it. And then you relate the word to a picture. So when I see the word, a picture of a dog, it's written under it, this is a dog. So I memorize the word and know that this is what it's related to. But in our way of teaching, we're just trying to break it down for the child, so the child can do it on his or her own. So we're rather making it simple for the child, not too complex. But like you said, it depends upon the exposure of the child. Edumasa children have probably not been exposed to other books. So they read things around their environment. But when you expose them to other things, you are encouraging the child to get more vocabulary. So that wherever the child finds him or herself in future, the child can easily fit in. So that is what we are trying to do, to guide the teacher to break the thing down for the child, so that the child doesn't just memorize so many words at a time, but I use my sounds to break the word and pronounce the word myself, and then freely read.
Now, in our days, the teacher taught with a cane in the hand, and spelling, dictation, and is it applicable today, or is it not applicable today?
We are moving away from it. We are moving away from it because, you see, those days, like I said before, the child was forced to, or even during our time, we were forced to memorize words. So the teacher gives me words on the board. I'm supposed to chant the words, go back, revise the words at home, come back and do dictation with it. But now we're saying that let a child, when I pronounce my name, Roberta, I'm using sounds to pronounce my name. I'm not using alphabet names. So what we are saying is move away from teaching children alphabets and teach children sounds, so that children will use the sounds to read easily.
But I think the GS is doing something like that, because I went into, I think, KG1, and I realized that instead of them doing A, B, C, D, they were doing A, B, S, they were saying the sounds of the alphabets, rather than, the names of the alphabets. When I went to KG, because I visited the school quite a bit. So is it similar to what you're doing, or is it?
There's a difference with what we are doing, in the sense that the teacher who is teaching the child Abekede probably is using the local language in doing that. Because even in our local language, when I tell you bra, I hear bo, I hear I hear ah. So from the known environment, the child hears sounds at home. When we come to Jolly Phonics, we don't focus on only 26 alphabets, because definitely there are certain words, like when you say che, you hear ch inside. The ch in the English language is ch, which is a digraph. So if I teach the child only the 26 alphabets, the child doesn't see ch over there. So how can the child easily spell the word chip? But when I teach you the 42 sounds, you come to meet diagrams where you see the ch sound over there, where I can easily pick ch and pick a and pick p, and then blend it together, and I pronounce the word chip. So that's how easy it is.
And clearly this was not in your time.
Let me tell you. I grew up in a village, Tutuka in Obuasi. We didn't speak any English, but we could speak Chi. So we learned to read the alphabet in Chi. A, B, D, A, F, and the rest of it. But except what the lady is saying, what we learned first were the sounds. But teachers wanted us to understand that there's something to do with language that helps us to write and to read. So that was a scientific basis on which you were taught. And then realize that ba is ba in English is the same thing. So, but the focus was on the local language, a language that we are comfortable with. Now, the transition to English was much easier, because we could read and write P. And it became, from that standpoint, it became easier for us to read and write English. We didn't understand English that much. Montreal, which was the largest country, larger town, or larger city. And I was tested. I was moved from class 1 to class 3 based on the grounding that I had in a village school. So the system by which we teach young people, like the young lady saying, is very, very important. We have to take that into consideration all the time. That the simpler, the better.
But at least one thing you've always said is that you couldn't speak English, but you could write it.
Yes, we could write it and it made sense. You could write. We could not speak it fluently, but we could write the words, or if there were some basic words, we could sound them, and the meaning came later. But the thing is this: you have to learn what to do with the symbols, and then as you progress, you begin to see that there's something meaningful. We're putting the sounds together, and the symbols help for you to begin to develop a string of words along the line, so that they can give you a word in English which you can try to spell. It might not be accurate, but the sense is there. And eventually, as you begin to coordinate your own method of spelling with the right thing, then between the two, you make the connections for the right thing. It was, frankly, using T to teach us English was one of the easiest things for us. And I'll tell you that in class 3, I could read and write P, I could read and write English, and I could also read the Enquanto Bisa, which was a newspaper in P. And I could also read Kwame Nkrumah's evening news in class 3. And that was mind-blowing for my family members, because even though they were grown, they could not read as well as I could in class 3. And I was an average child now, all based on how we were taught at the beginning to string words together, focus on the sound, and make meaning out of the sound.
I'm going to take a quick break here, and then when I come back, we're just trying to find out should there be a reading culture in the educational system, and how it is that we go about it. Don't move. Well, thank you very much for staying. And today's topic is today's readers will be tomorrow's leaders, and therefore children must definitely read so that tomorrow they can lead. Let me catch up with some of your messages. This one says, a child learns from known to unknown. If they often see their parents carrying things on their heads, why not mention it? It's one example of what the head does, with a big smiley. Mohammed S. Yakubu in Karaga. Let me go to take another one. This one says, good evening, Nana. Your P1 child comes home and asks you what is the head used for. You answer the head is made up of the mouth for eating, nose for breathing, etc. Won't you leave him more confused than left him with just one simple known answer? Because the child learns from the known to unknown. This is Haka Mutari. Again, he comes and says, Nana, Mr. Anis using only the urban children to constitute the microcosm of pupil of school-going age as example skews the whole argument. That's Hukash Munteri in Ketekrachi. He comes in again and says, Nana, a teacher, and I'm in love with the tutoring from the woman. How can I contact this intelligent woman for more updates? I'll let her leave her number, so stay tuned. She'll leave her number, so stay tuned. Let me get one more message. This one is from Martin in Peki. Nana, we all know thinking is abstract. How can you explain that to a class 1 child? We begin from the known to unknown, abstract to concentrate. I don't see the argument in this at all, unless they are able to prove to me that we don't carry loads on the head. To start telling a child in class 1 that the head is in different segments is complicating issues. I perfectly agree with the professor. So there are two schools of thoughts here. Let me catch this one here. It says, good evening, Nana, and your guest. The results is what matters in everything we do. Compare the standards of education today as against 70s, 80s, 90s. Our kids start school at age 2. Now there's nothing like them resting. When schools vacate, there's extra classes till schools resume. And let's ask ourselves, what are the results of today's standard education? What at all has today's education been able to solve upon this too much learning? And this is from Ebusa in Tema. And I kind of agree with him that, now there's extra classes, that. And anytime the BCE results come, is worse than the previous.
It's methods of teaching.
So we're just teaching too much, but not teaching well.
No, methods of teaching. How do you deliver the concept to the child? If the child is taught well, the child doesn't need extra classes.
Okay, so I'm looking at your book, Jolly Phonics Parent-Teacher Guide, giving children a flying start. And on page 3, it's got all these funny words. The group 1 is SATIPN. Group 2 is CKEHRMD. So, you need to learn all these things. Or what happens to this?
So these are the 42 sounds that we introduce the children to. Mm-hmm. And you could see that when you take the group 1 sounds, they are not alphabetically arranged. As you see the normal alphabets, A, B, C, D. We call it a satipin. Mm-hmm. The satipin was chosen because just with the first 3 sounds, you can form a word. Sat. And when I keep learning, Jolly Phonics says learning a systematic approach. So I learn 1 sound at a time, basically 1 sound a day. So the more I learn sounds, the more I put sounds together to blend to read words. And we use 5 basic skills. So first of all, if I am in KG1, I'll teach you the sounds, and I teach you how to write the sounds, going through a method of, first of all, writing the sound in the air and in the sun tray. So when I finish this process of you learning the sounds and learning how to write it, we don't just teach you in vain. After every sound, you must learn how to write it. After all the 42 sounds, you put sounds together to blend to form words.
I mean, kids in quoted unquote, maybe Martin Niporis would adopt this. But, I mean, kids, once upon a time, in a Dumasa, won't it be too much to teach other to do? I mean, won't this scare them away?
No, that's what we say. We pick 1 step at a time. We learn 1 sound a day. And 1 sound a day, what do we do with 1 sound? For example, I'm learning the first sound is. I relate the sound. We know that in Ghana Education Service right now, they are doing the NALAP system. The NALAP system is learning the local language. So in our local languages, we have the sounds. Mm-hmm. So if I learn the sounds, how does it become relevant to my environment? In my house, I say sapo. Mm-hmm. Sapo begins with the sounds. Mm-hmm. So the child must identify where the sound is in every word. If I say spoon, that is an English language. So I can hear the sounds in spoon and hear the sounds in sapo or sari. So it becomes relevant to the child wherever he or she finds herself. Then the child moves on to another sound. So we don't just learn the sounds abstractly. We try to relate the sounds to things in our environment. So it becomes meaningful to the child. And then we also let the child realize that as much as I'm learning sounds, you put sounds together to form words. So unlike where I have to learn the whole word method, I learn a sound, I put another sound together. I can join sa to have sa, which is not a meaningful word, but there are 2 sounds put together. So when I come to learn the sound t, I'll put sat, and I can read the word sat. And then the teacher will probably use gestures to explain to me the meaning of sat. So first day, I have picked a word. And then gradually it moves on. So you don't put everything together at a stretch. You move at a gradual pace.
Anis?
Yes.
I mean, will this encourage a reading culture where the child is now not afraid to pick a book because they can put the sound together?
Okay, I would like to do me a favor. I would like to respond to the gentleman who said that I'm comparing an urban situation to a village situation.
Sure.
Now, this is it. Mm-hmm. My training is all over the country, including villages. And the cognitive abilities of young people are the same. It depends on the exposure from the teacher. Now, not only that, I've had the opportunity to teach in international sectors where I've got Chinese, Koreans, Italians, Mexicans, English. And what I'm saying is that the cognitive ability of every human being is not different from one and the other. But it's how we raise them. But for us to have an attitude that a person in a city is more endowed cognitively than someone in a village setting is a fallacy. It depends on exactly how we think them. So what I'm saying is this: we should not underestimate the power of someone in a rural setting. The important thing is this: how well endowed is the teacher who is doing the instruction? If the instruction is together, if the materials are together, a child in a village will pick as many concepts as anyone in the urban situation. So we should not make that. But the important thing is this: education is supposed to do one thing, to bring out the best in the human being. And therefore, we cannot use primitive exercises to support something or to validate a situation that we want to get rid of. In 21st century, it does not make any sense to me whatsoever that we're going to spend the time and the effort to write a book for science and use text to create examples as a human being that is carrying things on the head. And what I will tell you is that, for sure, God did not create the head to be carrying things. Because look at the neck itself, the combination of vertebrae, and also the cartilage that underlines the vertebrae. After carrying things at that tender age, in the next 10 years or so, the human being begins to develop problems with a spinal cord, which is the life system connecting the brain to the rest of the body. Science, a book on science, that's the first thing you should do. How do you protect the head itself? How do you protect the neck? How do you protect the human body so that it serves us for how many years? And some people have done that way. But then, there's no scientific basis that would justify a professor writing a textbook and saying that the head should be used for something as decrepit and as primitive as carrying things on the head. That is my conclusion. So we talk later. Have a good one.
Very good, very good. Let me get this message. It says, "Good evening, Nana. What we have forgotten as a country, as I follow the discourse about the claimed error, is that the hand can be used for carrying load. Mind you, the head is not used for thinking, rather the brain is used for thinking. So Nana, kindly let your guest know that she has a willing volunteer here at the Dumasa already to complement Awu's library.
Wow.
For a child to read well means he or she must be able to speak well. So I believe when the grammar aspects are taught well, children will easily identify, for example, two-letter words which would lead to an improvement in their spelling, phonetics, and good composition and writing." Exactly. Charles Abraham Cranting, Republic of Dumasa, teacher, Ajana Secondary School. So we have one volunteer there.
Always welcome.
I mean, generally, does it encourage people to not to fear to pick the book? Because I think that's one of the main things that with a book and say, so then you might as well shy away from it. And they say, black people don't like reading. Does this encourage reading?
Exactly. I can just give you one example of a child came to me, brought to me by a parent, and the parent was telling me the child was struggling to read. So we had to go through the sounds, just with the sounds. The next day, the parent came and told me, "Roberta, I don't know what is happening to my son, but even when we're trying to listen to the news, he's using his sounds to blend together to read something for us," which in the past wasn't so. So we're only trying to build confidence in the children, to let the children know that it is not your teacher who is supposed to guide you to chant words, but you're supposed to take the sounds and break them yourself to read. So the bottom line that Jolly Phonics says is, we don't introduce children to alphabet names from the beginning. So we don't teach alphabets from the beginning. We only introduce the children to the sounds. When the children have used the sounds to build words, then later we introduce them to the alphabet names. So it starts from one step to the other.
But Professor, does your sound thing fit into the normal GES curriculum, or they'll say, "Hey, hold on, you're teaching our kids something new other than what we are doing"?
It fits into the GES system because GES is still teaching children sounds. both in the local language and the English language. So with the language and literacy period, the child learns the sounds in the local language as well as learn the sounds in the English language. So we are trying to just work hand in hand. And for the various districts that we've worked so far, we've realized that children who are even introduced to the 42 sounds makes it easy for them to rather read the local languages. Because aside the 26 alphabets that they're exposed to in the local languages, they come to realize that there are words that come in with diagraphs. And if I'm able to know the sounds of these diagrams, I can easily use that word to transfer into my local language. So that is what is really happening amazingly out there.
And how long would it take you to train a teacher to be able to train somebody? And who makes sure that the teacher is not deviating from these diagrams and sounds?
Our training normally takes about 4 days. 4 days because we have 2 books that we use for pupils' work. We have the Jolly Phonics Pupils Book 1, that comes with the 42 basic sounds, and then from the sounds they move on to what we call tricky words. So that covers the book 1, and we use 2 days for the training of that. And within these 2 days, we guide the teacher to guide the children to learn 1 sound a day. So effectively, if you do 1 sound a day, it means you're using 42 days to teach 42 sounds. Then from there, the child builds into words and uses the words to simply spell things for you by segmenting the words with sounds. Then after the book 1, we move on to the book 2. The book 2 is made up of where we go into alternative spelling of words. So for example, if I have learned the basic word that a word like rain comes with the sound a, n. I hear a word like a, sound like a in the word day. So where do I know the difference between a in rain and a in day? That is when we learn it in the alternative sounds. And we use 2 days for all that as well. So 4 days for training for the teachers.
And who supervises to make sure that the kids are getting exactly what they're supposed to get?
Okay, during the training of our teachers, we include the circuit supervisors who go around to supervise work. We include the supervisors, we call them the AD soup. They are also present. We also have the first contact of supervision is the head teacher. So we invite head teachers to be present as well. So in a totality, we train all the people on the ground for the head teacher to go into the classroom to monitor before the circuit supervisor also comes in to do additional monitoring and the AD soup. So all these people come together for 4 days training.
Don't move. We're coming back. And how young could your child start reading? Don't move. Well, thank you very much. And we are talking about the very important subject of getting our children in the habit of reading. And this one says, Nana, I agree perfectly with your guest about putting sounds together to form words. But what do we see today? We mark exam script and see things like B, the letter, 4, as in the figure, which is before. And it is written B4, and so on. What is her take on that? It has got to do with sound, Mensa Selom, and also they want to find out how they can reach you.
Okay. B4 is not a word.
Well, it's before.
It's a letter and then a figure being put together, but that is not a word.
It's like a door number.
So I don't really agree. I think it's people's way of shortening things now. So our WhatsApp text messages and everything that we are shortening is coming into children's script writing, and that is really teachers are complaining about. So I think when you have a child who is using, I normally try to send text messages and write the full words. And friends keep prompting me, why shorten it? I keep telling them because of what I do. Okay. So if we keep prompting children, I think they'll go out of it. If you encourage them, they'll keep doing it.
But have we reached the era of shortening things, or we still have to go, the whole...
I think if you want to write Nana, there's no short form of writing Nana.
Anyway,
so I don't know how I'm going to shorten Nana.
So the couple of messages, those who want to reach Jolly Phonics, so what would they do?
Okay, my number is...
And this one says Nana contact to contact, so that's the number. So give me the number.
So my number is 050 90 40 966.
The number again?
050 90 40 966.
So I hope you got that, and so that if you need to get Jolly Phonics, but the reading culture generally, not, you know, what should be done? What is the plan to get us all reading and reading wide?
We should create an environment of reading. For example, when we come for Jolly Phonics training in various districts that we've been to, we tell the teachers that make good use of TLMs, that's teacher learning materials. Whatever you are teaching the children, make learning materials, place them in the classrooms. You try to create a culture for the child to read everything in the environment. I went to a school in Nkranza North where the teacher has made flashcards, hanging one rope from one end to the other, and fix the flashcards on the rope in the classroom. So what happens? The child, instead of going out to play all the time, goes out, comes back into the classroom, and then you see them turning the flashcards around and reading. So your classroom must be reading environment friendly for the child to always know that there's something for me to follow and read. Let us look at the classrooms in Abuchi. Everything is around. So can't we create the same thing here? Sometimes probably it's even the teachers are complaining that the cost of Manila cards. But I tell them, create a corner, reading corner, where you can have Pepsodent box, you can have Voltic bottle, you can have all these things that we throw away, pack them in the corner, and then try to let children know that the sound that I'm teaching is written on the material that is on the Insu bottle. So if, for example, I'm teaching the sound oh, I can find oh in Voltic, Voltic. So a child sees that everywhere, everything around is made up of sounds.
Quarantine, tell Isaac to put sounds in the classroom, yeah? Quarantine, go and tell Isaac that you have to go to the classrooms and write things and stick it on there. I haven't thought of it like that. But yes, as you're drawing my attention to it, you realize that there's always pictures and
everywhere.
Words and that builds your
exactly.
your habit of wanting to read.
Exactly. Sometimes you visit homes and you realize that parents have put these stickers on the fridges with words. They are trying to draw attention to children to make good use of the things on the fridge and read them. So make the environment reading friendly, and then the children will fall into reading.
I mean, so how come, you know, the classrooms outside of the city don't have these things? Is it because, as a GES hasn't said, look, every classroom should have these things on there, or why aren't they there?
But GES keeps telling teachers that make TLMs available in your classrooms. And to me, as a professional teacher, when you're using TLMs for teaching, it makes your work easy. Because if I put everything that I'm teaching in the classroom on the boards or the cards for them to, from as low as the KGs.
To say class 6, class 3?
Even JHS. For example, if even you are learning the equation, add maths or whatever it is, whatever the equations are, the teacher has written it, addition, subtraction, and has it on the flashcard. It's in the classroom. So the child is always reflecting on the things around, learning whatever the teacher has already taught. Even if it's grammar, you can have on a flashcard, a verb is a doing word. It is pasted there. So when a child goes out and comes back in, the child reads a verb is a doing word with other examples of verbs. So reading is not just picking a book to read, but whatever I found, I see sounds over here, I can put them together and I read for you. If we do that for children, children will always yearn to read things around. And that is where the culture starts from.
Wow. It sounds quite simplistic considering how we have missed it.
It's very simple.
The verb is a doing word. Let me catch up with some of your messages. Seriously, these people, GES needs to boost the teaching system. She really knows what we call teaching methodology, and I salute her intellectual. You didn't add your name to the message. Says, I really love this show tonight. I've learned a lot. This is Louise in Odumase. Louise, if you're a teacher, put some writings on your wall. Let me catch one more message. Madame Roberta said, if a child is taught well, then there is no need for that child to attend extra class. What exactly does she mean? Is she saying that if, for instance, I have 5 topics to teach and it will take me 5 days to teach them. Then it happens that the child should write an exam in 3 days' time. Then since I taught these children only 2 topics well, then, oh, this is this is literally a litigant. But thank you very much for tuning in. And Roberta, thank you very much for coming. We thank Anis for also joining us. And as I always say, tomorrow we'll be back to do this all over again. We thank GT for supporting the show. But whatever it is, let us build the teaching habit in our children. So every teacher, by tomorrow, write things and just paste them on your wall and get the children reading, because they have to. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you too.
Thank you.